The XFL had some successes and some failures in the past. Vince McMahon sold off the 2020 relaunch after being shut down because of COVID-19. Before the new Football League season starts, let's look back at some NFL players who played for the Vince McMahon-led XFL. And we're pretty sure some of these names will definitely catch you by surprise. In this video, we'll discuss some NFL players you forgot were in the XFL. First off, Larry Rose III. Larry Rose III is one of the best college football players who doesn't get enough credit. It's easy to miss this player since he goes under the radar, but his career is pretty impressive. He played college football for the terrible New Mexico State Aggies, but he was the best running back in the country, especially in his first and second years. He's a quick back who can get around defenders and find even the most minor running lanes. One of the best things he does is follow his blocks and use them to make the best running path. He can also see very well. Larry's also versatile because he's returned punts and kickoffs and is an excellent receiver out of the backfield. All of these things should help his draft stock. He's a good cutter and has enough speed to get to the outside. Rose III didn't play much in the NFL. He played for the Tennessee Titans and the Los Angeles Rams, but that was about it. But he played for the Los Angeles Wildcats in 2020, something you might not have noticed. Up next, Steve Gleason. Steve Gleason's one of the most loved players in recent history. As a counterculture athlete who traveled to third world countries during the offseason, he'll always be remembered for blocking a punt on the first night the Louisiana Superdome reopened after Hurricane Katrina. Many people in the city came to see that moment as a sign of hope. In January 2011, Steve was told he had ALS, a neuromuscular disease that's supposed to be fatal. Aside from his belief that there's a way to heal, his goal is to show that people with this diagnosis can live and thrive. He did this to try to get other people to do the same. So Steve and his wife Michelle put together Team Gleason to help him reach these goals and more. Gleason played in the XFL's first season before returning to the NFL. The Birmingham Thunderbolts picked him up in the draft, but he didn't play much for them. Followed by Landry Jones. We know Landry Jones for two things. One's a great quarterback for the University of Oklahoma Sooners, and the other's a good backup quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers for a few years. Jones has also never been beaten in a bowl game. Jones was thrust into the spotlight as a freshman when Bradford got hurt and had to miss the rest of the season. He led the Sooners to win over Stanford in the Sun Bowl. As a sophomore, he led the Sooners to an impressive 48-20 victory over UConn in the Fiesta Bowl. Even though the Sooners lost all the way to the Insight Bowl, he still beat Iowa. Even though winning the Sun Bowl and the Insight Bowl isn't as impressive as winning 2 more BCS Bowls or the National Championship, he's still one of the few quarterbacks who have never lost in the playoffs. But he did also play in the XFL in the year 2020. He played for the Dallas Renegades with his college coach Bob Stoops. The Pittsburgh Steelers tried to re-sign Jones after Ben Roethlisberger got hurt and had to be taken out of the lineup, but the XFL stopped them. Moving on to Ryan Broyles. You probably don't remember Ryan Broyles playing in the XFL because, technically speaking, he didn't play. In the 2012 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions picked him up in the second round. In Week 7, during the fourth quarter of a 13-7 loss to the Chicago Bears, he caught his first NFL touchdown pass. Broyles was fined $10,000 for a crack block that was against the rules at the Minnesota Vikings in Week 10. The Detroit Sports Broadcasters Association named him 2012 Rookie of the Year for the Detroit Lions. He asked to be let go by the Lions in 2015, just days after barely playing in a preseason game against Jacksonville. He was a wide receiver for the Oklahoma Sooners when he was younger. He had a lot of potential, but his injury shortened his time in the NFL. After 6 years, Broyles came out of retirement and signed with the Dallas Renegades. This move brought him back together with his college quarterback Landry Jones and head coach Bob Stoops. But a month before the season started, Broyles quit without warning. The Renegades kept his rights in case he changed his mind. Next, Josh Johnson. Josh Johnson is the best case scenario for an NFL player who moves from team to team. The Broncos recently gave Johnson a 1-year veteran minimum contract with a total cap hit of almost exactly $1 million. He was almost unstoppable when he was at USD, and Jim Harbaugh was his head coach. He has a great feel for the pocket, but he's also a very good runner when he needs to. During college, when he played against most people who didn't get scholarships, he put up some crazy numbers. He was taken in the 5th round of the 2008 draft, and since then he's played football for 22 different teams. The XFL had one of those teams. In 2020, Johnson was the Los Angeles Wildcats starting quarterback. The journeyman lit up the league and led the XFL in passer rating before the end of the season. This really shows how much better NFL benchwarmers are than everyone else. Not to mention Jose Cortez. Jose Cortez is a player with an interesting story. Even though he's just a kicker, he's probably the most successful XFL player in terms of how long his career was and how much he played in and out of the league. Cortez played football for 10 years. He played for the San Francisco 49ers, the Dallas Cowboys, and the Minnesota Vikings. In February 2000, the San Diego Chargers signed him and sent him to the NFL Europe's Amsterdam Admirals. In 2000, the Los Angeles Extreme picked him with the 304th in the XFL draft. This brought him back together with head coach Al Luginbill, who had coached him with the Admirals. Even though he missed 3 of his first 5 field goal attempts, he made 13 of his next 14 after that. He won the championship and was also the most valuable player. Not bad for a kicker. Let's learn more about PJ Walker. Walker first played in college as Connor Riley's backup. He'd eventually get the starting quarterback job. PJ Walker is one of the XFL's most successful players from the year 2020. He was the 3rd-string quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts for a few years before moving to the Houston Roughnecks in 2020. Walker was the best and had the most passing yards and touchdowns in the league. He went back to the NFL after that season in the XFL and signed with the Carolina Panthers. Walker has played a lot and has even won a few games at the center position. Then came in for the Panthers in the 3rd quarter of their game against the Atlanta Falcons in 2020, when Teddy Bridgewater got hurt. Walker only completed 1 of his 4 passes, which went to Robbie Anderson for 3 yards while he was on the field. He finished the game, completing 2 passes for 12 yards. Coming up, Keenan Reynolds. In recent years, Keenan Reynolds was among the most interesting college football stories. The Baltimore Ravens picked Reynolds with the 182nd pick in the 6th round of the 2016 NFL Draft. The Ravens cut him in 2016 during the last round of cuts. The next day, he was put on the practice squad. He was on the active team for the last game of the season, but he was on the inactive list for the game, and after the season, he became a free agent with exclusive rights. From 2012 to 2016, he couldn't be stopped when he played for the Navy. At the end of his college career, he held almost all of the quarterback rushing records. In 2017, Reynolds signed a 1-year contract with the Ravens as a free agent with exclusive rights. Later, the Ravens let him go as one of their last cuts. Reynolds tried to play a different position in the NFL, but it didn't work. In 2020, he joined the Seattle Dragons of the XFL as a wide receiver and special team star. Next, Rod Smart. We tend to forget Rod Smart's time in the XFL because he didn't play under his real name. Instead, he chose to have the words "He Hate Me" written, and it quickly became the best-selling jersey. Even though he didn't do much outside of the XFL, he's still one of the most loved players in the league's history, even if most of us don't know his name. He ran for 555 yards during the season, which put him in 2nd place in the league. During the one and only XFL season, he also finished 3rd in average rushing yards and scored 3 touchdowns. He ran the ball the most for the Outlaws and had the team's 2nd most receptions and yards. Of the more than 300 players who played in the XFL during its one season in 2001, Smart really liked how the league did football and sports entertainment. In the documentary This Was the XFL, he said that he would have come back for a 2nd season. He also said he had yet to try out for a job in the NFL or CFL before the XFL fell apart. Finally, Taylor Heinicke. By far, Taylor Heinicke's the most successful player for the XFL's 2020 season. As a member of the St. Louis Battlehawks, he never even got on the field. But still, the Washington Commanders gave him a chance after the season was over. Heinicke became famous when he replaced an injured Alex Smith in a playoff game in 2021. He went up against Tom Brady and came close to pulling off an upset. Since then, he stayed in Washington, where he's had some great moments. And on that note, that's a wrap for this video. Which of these players were you surprised to see in both the NFL and the XFL? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.